The child began to hit the coffin. When they opened the lid, people heard the billionaire crying. The Thompson mansion stood out in the landscape of the most upscale neighborhood in Chicago, not only for its imposing architecture, but mainly for the constant flow of people coming and going through its gates. William Thompson, at 65, had turned his residence into more than just a symbol of wealth. It was a true center of hope for hundreds of people seeking help. On that autumn morning, as he watched the activity from his second-floor office, William adjusted his gold-framed glasses and smiled as he saw another group of social workers arriving for the weekly meeting. His still thick gray hair and face marked with expressive wrinkles revealed not just his age, but more importantly, the stories of a life dedicated to making a difference in the world. "Dad, we need to talk." The firm voice of Nathan, his eldest son, interrupted his thoughts. William turned to find his 35-year-old son standing at the door, wearing an impeccable suit and carrying a folder of documents. "It's about the latest donations for the Children's Hospital project." William gestured to the chair in front of him, already anticipating the nature of the conversation. Nathan, who had a degree in business administration and was currently the financial director of the family companies, always seemed concerned about the volume of resources allocated to social projects. "The numbers don't add up, Dad," Nathan began, spreading spreadsheets across the mahogany table. "Just this month, you allocated almost 30% of the company's profits to donations. That's not even counting the expenses for your protégé." The last word came out with a tone that didn't sit well with William. He knew his son was referring to Sophia Johnson, the girl he had practically adopted 15 years ago after finding her in critical condition at an orphanage during a trip to Miami. "Nathan, we've talked about this before," William replied calmly but firmly. "Money exists to be used for good. I don't regret a single cent invested in saving lives and giving opportunities to those in need. But Dad, what about the future of the company? What about our legacy?" Nathan insisted, running his hand through his dark hair in a gesture of frustration. "My sister Emily agrees with me. We can't keep up this pace of donations." William slowly stood up, walked over to the window, and looked out at the well-kept garden below. His eyes settled on a delicate figure walking among the roses. Sophia Johnson, now 20 years old, had blossomed into an admirable young woman, despite all the adversities she had faced. "Do you remember what our life was like before I made my fortune, son?" William asked, still gazing out the window. "We lived in a modest house in the suburbs. I worked 16 hours a day to make sure you and your sister had a quality education. I never forgot where I came from, and that's why I make it a point to help." Nathan sighed, a habit he'd had since childhood when he was upset. "It's different, Dad. We were family. You had an obligation to us, but these people, this girl, they're nothing to us." William turned to his son, his eyes revealing a mix of sadness and determination. "That's where you're wrong. Nathan, we're all part of the same humanity. When I found Sophia in that orphanage, I saw in her eyes the same strength I saw in you and your sister when you were little. The difference is, she had no one to stand by her." The conversation was interrupted by a soft knock at the door. Sophia entered, carrying a tray with tea and cookies. Her smile brightened the tense atmosphere, but Nathan could barely bring himself to look at her. "I brought your favorite tea, Uncle William," she said affectionately. From the beginning, she had been instructed to call him Uncle, though she treated him like a father. "Oh, hi, Nathan. I didn't know you were here. Would you like a cup too?" Nathan stood up abruptly, gathering his papers. "No, thank you. I was already on my way out." "Dad, think about what I said. This conversation isn't over." After Nathan left, Sophia approached William and held his hand. "He still doesn't accept me, does he?" she asked softly. William smiled, squeezing her hand affectionately. "Give it time, my dear. Nathan needs to understand that true wealth isn't in the numbers on a spreadsheet, but in the smiles we can bring to others." As they sipped their tea in silence, William felt a slight dizziness, something that had been happening frequently over the past few weeks. He didn't mention it to avoid worrying Sophia, but he made a mental note to schedule an appointment with his doctor. After all, there was still much work to be done and many lives left to touch. In the living room of the mansion, Emily was flipping through an old photo album. Her fingers lingered on a specific image, her at 12 years old, standing next to Her brother Nathan and their parents, all smiling in front of the family's first hardware store. It was hard to believe that from such humble beginnings, her father had built an empire. "I thought I had thrown these old albums away," Sophia's voice echoed through the room, startling Emily. The young woman approached cautiously, as she always did in the presence of William's biological daughter. "These are family memories," Emily replied curtly, closing the album. "Something you wouldn't understand." Sophia took a deep breath, gathering her courage. "Emily, why have you never given me a chance? It's been 15 years. And for 15 years, I've watched my father give you twice the attention he gave his own children," Emily interrupted, standing up from the couch. "Do you know how many times he missed my ballet recitals to be with you at the hospital? How many of Ricardo's birthdays did he miss because of his treatments?" The silence weighed heavily between the two women. Sophia Johnson sat in the spot. Emily Thompson had left vacant, carefully picking up the photo album. "May I?" she asked, and without waiting for an answer, she opened it. "You all look so happy here," she commented, observing the photo Emily had been looking at. "Uncle William still has the same smile today when he talks about the early days." "Of the store." Emily, who was about to leave the room, stopped. There was something in Sophia's voice that made her hesitate. "Does he tell you about that time?" "Always," Sophia smiled softly. "He tells me how he would wake up at 4 in the morning to check the deliveries, how he saved every penny to pay for your private school, how your mother helped with the management, even when she was sick." The mention of her mother made Emily take a few steps back. Sarah Thompson, her mother, had passed away when she was 15 after a long battle with a degenerative illness. It was a subject the family rarely touched on. "He talks about Mom to you?" Sophia nodded, turning another page of the album. "He says she was the one who taught him the true meaning of generosity. Even in the hardest moments of her illness, she insisted on helping others who were going through similar situations." Emily sat down again, this time beside Sophia. It was the first time in years that the two had shared such a moment, close like this. "Mom had a support group at the hospital," she revealed, her voice softening. "She said helping others face their fears made her forget her own. That's why he helped me," Sophia said quietly, closing the album. "When he found me at that orphanage in Miami, he said he saw in my eyes the same spark of hope he used to see in hers." Emily wiped away a tear that stubbornly refused to fall. Do you remember that day?" "Every detail," Sophia replied, her own voice choked. "I was so weak I could barely open my eyes. The doctors had already given up on me, saying it was only a matter of time. Then on a rainy afternoon he showed up. I can't explain it, but when our eyes met, something changed. He held my hand and promised he wouldn't let me give up." "Dad and his promises," Emily murmured, an involuntary smile appearing on her lips. "He never broke a single one. Not even when everyone said it was madness to try to save me," Sophia added. "The doctors gave me less than a 1% chance. The disease was too advanced, the treatment would be extremely expensive and painful, but he didn't give up." A different kind of silence settled between them, no longer filled with hostility, but with mutual understanding. Emily picked up the album again, opening it to a specific photo. Her mother in the garden of the old house, surrounded by roses. "Did you know it was Mom who taught Dad how to care for roses?" she commented, glancing meaningfully at the garden through the window, where the same flowers Sophia had cultivated now bloomed. "She used to say that roses are like people. They need constant care, patience, and lots of love to bloom." Sophia smiled, understanding the message between the lines. "Uncle William told me the same thing when he taught me how to tend the garden. He said every rose has its time to bloom." At that moment, they were interrupted by a commotion coming from the hallway. Nathan hurriedly entered the room, his face tense. "Emily, we need to talk." "It's about Dad." "What happened?" the two women asked in unison, standing up. "I just got a call from Dr. Anderson. Dad's latest tests. They're not good. He wants to see us today, but he asked us not to say anything to Dad for now." The fear that settled in the hearts of the two women at that moment was the same, proving that some bonds go beyond blood. While Emily and Nathan headed to the door, Sophia remained in the room, looking at the photo album and the rose garden, symbols of a love that transcended the barriers of time and prejudice. Dr. Anderson's office exuded a seriousness that made Nathan and Emily feel like children again. The doctor, who had been caring for the family for over 2 decades, adjusted his glasses as he organized a series of tests on his dark wooden desk. "William's condition is quite peculiar," he began, choosing his words carefully. "The episodes of dizziness and fainting he's been experiencing are symptoms of a rare condition called catalepsy." "Catalepsy?" Emily leaned forward, her hands gripping her purse tightly. "What exactly does that mean, Doctor?" The doctor took a deep breath before continuing. "It's a neurological condition that causes muscle rigidity and a state of apparent unconsciousness. The patient may seem, they may seem lifeless during these episodes." Nathan abruptly stood up from his chair. "Are you saying that our father might look as if he were—" He couldn't finish the sentence. "Yes," Dr. Anderson confirmed gravely. "The episodes can last from minutes to hours. The greatest danger is that during a crisis, the vital signs become so weak that they may be imperceptible without specific equipment." "My God," Emily whispered, tears beginning to form in her eyes. "Is there any treatment?" "We can control the symptoms with medication, but it is essential that William be constantly monitored. Any change in his routine, excessive stress, or strong emotion can trigger an episode." Nathan ran his hands over his face, trying to absorb the information. "And how long? What is the expectation?" "We cannot predict," the doctor gently interrupted. "Each case is unique. What's important now is to establish a care protocol and ensure that he is always accompanied." Meanwhile, at the mansion, William was in his office with Sophia, who was organizing some documents related to social projects. He watched the young woman with a mix of pride and concern, aware of the increasingly frequent dizziness he had been feeling. "Sophia," he called softly, making her look up from the papers. "Come here for a moment." She approached, sitting in the chair beside him. William took an envelope from the drawer and handed it to her. "I want you to read this." Carefully, Sophia opened the envelope and began to read the document in her hands. Her eyes gradually widened. "Uncle William, this is—" "Yes," he confirmed with a serene smile. "It's your enrollment in the medical school. You always said you wanted to help others the way the doctors helped you. Now you'll have that chance." Sophia Johnson covered her mouth with her hands, tears streaming freely down her face. "But the tuition is so high. I can't accept this." "You can and you will," William Thompson stated firmly. "It's all settled. You start next semester." "Does Nathan and Emily know about this?" William shook his head. "Not yet, but they will in due time. What matters is that you have your own path no matter what happens to me." "Don't talk like that," Sophia protested, holding his hand. "You'll be there at my graduation, you'll see. Every step of my journey." At that moment, William felt a stronger dizziness than usual. His vision darkened for a few seconds, and he had to lean on the table to keep from falling. "Uncle William!" Sophia stood up alarmed, rushing to support him. "What was that? Should I call someone?" No. He slowly recovered, forcing a smile. "Just a passing discomfort. It must be the fatigue." Sophia didn't seem convinced. "You need to rest more. You've been working too much on these projects." "Maybe you're right," he agreed, still feeling slightly dizzy. "But first I need to tell you one more thing. Sit down." She obeyed, still holding his hand with concern. William then began to talk about a new project he was planning, the construction of a specialized treatment center for children with rare diseases, inspired by her story. "It will be the largest center in North America," he explained, his eyes shining with enthusiasm. "With state-of-the-art equipment and a team of the best specialists, no child will be turned away due to lack of resources." "It's a wonderful dream," Sophia replied, moved. "But it must cost a fortune." "And it will," he confirmed. "But it's worth every penny if we can save other lives like we saved yours." The sound of doors opening interrupted the conversation. Nathan and Emily entered the office, their faces tense after the conversation with the doctor. Seeing the college envelope in Sophia's hands, Nathan frowned. "What is that?" he asked, though his tone suggested he already knew the answer. "Your father just gave me the greatest gift of my life," Sophia replied, unable to contain her joy, despite the tension in the room. "I'm going to study medicine." The silence that followed was deafening. Emily and Nathan exchanged worried glances, while William maintained his firm posture, even as he felt another wave of dizziness approaching. The storm brewing on the horizon of the Thompson family was just beginning. The news of Sophia's enrollment in medical school sparked a stormy family meeting that same evening. In the library of the mansion, the antique furniture and shelves filled with books bore witness to yet another clash among the members of the Thompson family. "You can't make decisions of this magnitude without consulting us," Nathan gestured, emphatically pacing back and forth. "Especially now with your health." "My health has nothing to do with this," William interrupted, remaining calm in his favorite armchair. "The money I'm investing in Sophia's education is mine, earned through my own work." Emily, seated on the sofa near the window, watched the rain beginning to fall outside. The droplets hitting the glass seemed to match the rapid pace of her heartbeat. After the revealing conversation she had had with Sophia earlier, her emotions were in turmoil. "Dad," she began, choosing her words carefully, "it's not just about the money. You know you'll need special care from now on. Dr. Anderson was very clear about that." Sophia, who was standing near the door, took a step forward. "I can postpone. College. If Uncle William needs care, I want to be here to help." "No." William raised his voice for the first time, surprising everyone. "You won't postpone anything. I've already wasted too much time letting fear and prejudice delay dreams in this family." Nathan stopped his nervous pacing, turning to his father. "What are you talking about?" "I'm talking about your mother, Nathan," William replied, his voice heavy with emotion. "Laura had the dream of studying psychology. She wanted to help others who went through what she did. But we let her illness stop her, always saying, 'Later, when you get better.' Later never came." The silence weighed heavily. In the library, Emily covered her face with her hands, remembering the last days of her mother when she still spoke about her unfulfilled dreams. "But Dad," Nathan tried to argue, his voice softer now, "the situation is different. You need to take care of yourself. You need to rest. This treatment center project, Sophia's college, it's too much to handle right now." "That's exactly why I need to do this," William replied, standing up with determination. "We don't know how much time we have, Nathan. I learned that from your mother. What we do with that time is what matters." At that moment, Maria, the housekeeper who had worked with the family for decades, entered the library carrying a tray with William's medication and a glass of water. Her wrinkled face showed concern as she noticed the tension in the room. "Don William," she called in her characteristic Spanish accent, "it's time for your medication." Sophia immediately moved to help Maria with the tray, but Nathan was quicker. For the first time since the argument had begun, he showed vulnerability as he handed the medication to his father. "You always taught us to fight for what we believe in," Nathan said quietly, watching his father take the pills. "But you also taught us about responsibility, about thinking of the consequences." William smiled, placing his hand on his son's shoulder. "And that's exactly what I'm doing, my son. I'm thinking about the future, about leaving a legacy that goes beyond money." Emily stood up and approached the group. "What if we make a deal? Sophia starts college as planned, but we organize a care schedule for you. We can all participate, including her during her free time outside of college." Sophia Johnson nodded energetically. "I can adjust my study schedule, and I promise to dedicate myself fully to honor this opportunity." William Thompson looked at each person present, his heart filling with hope. Even amidst the disagreements, he saw signs that his family could come together. However, a new wave of dizziness hit him, causing him to sway slightly. "Dad!" everyone exclaimed in unison, rushing to support him. "I'm fine," he assured, though his pallor suggested otherwise. "I just need to rest for a bit." Maria Gonzalez, who was watching the scene with maternal eyes, approached. "Come on, Mr. William, I'll help you lie down. It's getting late and you need to rest." As William was escorted out of the library, Nathan, Emily, and Sophia remained silent, each absorbing the events of the evening. The sound of the rain continued its steady melody against the windows, a reminder of the emotional storm they were all facing. "I'll make some tea for everyone," Maria announced upon returning. "You all need to calm down too. Mr. William may seem strong, but he needs peace and harmony now more than ever." The housekeeper's words echoed in the minds of the three young people. As the night progressed, the Thompson mansion gradually quieted, but the concerns and decisions of that evening would continue to reverberate in the days to come. 3 months had passed since the night of the argument in the library. Autumn had given way to winter, and the Thompson mansion had established a new routine. In William's room, Sophia adjusted the heart monitor that had become part of the patriarch's daily life. "You don't need to tighten the strap so much," William joked, observing the young woman's almost excessive dedication. "At this rate, I'll lose circulation in my arm." Sophia smiled, loosening the device slightly. "Sorry, Uncle. It's just that after what happened last week, I've been more worried." The episode she was referring to had frightened the entire family. During a meeting with investors for the new treatment center, William had a catalepsy episode that lasted almost an hour. If it hadn't been for Maria Gonzalez's quick thinking, who recognized the signs and prevented them from calling an ambulance, the secret of his condition could have leaked to the press. "Have you started studying for the college entrance exam?" "Yet?" William asked, deliberately changing the subject. "The test is in 2 months." "Yes, Nathan has been helping me with math and physics," she replied, surprising William. "Actually, he's been really kind lately." It was true. Since the care schedule had been implemented, Nathan had started to see Sophia Johnson in a different light. Their study sessions together had revealed a smart and determined young woman, very different from the intruder he had imagined. Downstairs, Emily was organizing documents in the office when Nathan walked in, carrying a thick folder. "I finished reviewing the budgets for the treatment center," he announced, sitting down across from his sister. "The costs are astronomical, but I found some suppliers who offer better payment terms." Emily looked up from the papers, surprised. "I thought you were against the project." "I was," Nathan admitted, running his hand through his hair. "But after seeing how happy Dad gets talking about it, and after getting to know Sophia better, I realized I might have been wrong." A gentle smile appeared on Emily's lips. Who would have thought tough guy Nathan Thompson would admit he was wrong? "Don't get used to it," he joked, but soon turned serious again. "B, have you noticed that Dad's episodes are becoming more frequent?" "Yes," she replied, the concern evident in her voice. "Dr. Anderson said this could happen. That's why we increased the surveillance." Maria Gonzalez entered the office at that moment, carrying a tray with coffee. "Mr. William is having a good day today," she commented as she poured the cups. "He even joked with me about throwing a Christmas party this year." "Christmas party?" Emily and Nathan asked in unison. "Yes," Maria continued, a nostalgic gleam in her eyes. "Like in the old days when Mrs. Sarah Thompson was still with us. He wants to gather all the people he has helped over the years." Nathan stood up, walking to the window. The rose garden, now covered in a thin layer of frost, looked especially beautiful on that winter morning. "It would be a huge event. I'm not sure if it's wise, given his health condition." "But maybe it's exactly what he needs," Emily interjected, an idea forming in her mind. "Something to lift his spirits, to show that life goes on despite the difficulties." At that moment, they heard a noise from upstairs, followed by a scream from Sophia Johnson. Nathan was the first to run up the stairs, closely followed by Emily and Maria. In the room, they found William lying on the bed, apparently unconscious, while Sophia checked his vitals with trembling hands. "The monitor. His heartbeat is very weak," she reported, tears in her eyes. "Calm down," Nathan approached, placing a hand on her shoulder. "Remember what Dr. Anderson said? This can happen during the episodes. We need to wait." Emily was already on the phone with the doctor, who advised them to stay calm and follow the established protocol. Maria, with her years of experience, began preparing warm compresses, knowing that heat helped William recover from the episodes more quickly. "He was doing so well just a few minutes ago," Sophia whispered, still holding William's hand. We're talking about Christmas." Nathan and Emily exchanged meaningful glances. It was as if William had overheard the conversation happening downstairs. "Everything will be fine," Emily assured, hugging Sophia. "Dad is strong and now he has all of us taking care of him." The minutes that followed felt endless. The room was silent, broken only by the soft beep of the heart monitor and the almost imperceptible sound of William's breathing. The Thompson family, now truly united, waited once again for the storm to pass, unaware that even greater challenges lay ahead. 2 weeks before Christmas, the Thompson mansion buzzed with preparations for the grand celebration. Maria coordinated a team of staff decorating the vast main hall, while Emily reviewed the guest list, which had already surpassed 300 people. "The children from the St. Anthony orphanage have confirmed their attendance," Sophia announced, entering the hall with a tablet in hand. "That's 25 more little ones for the list." Emily smiled, making the necessary notes. "Dad will love that. He's always had a special fondness for that orphanage." She hesitated for a moment before continuing. "That's where he met you, isn't it?" "No," Sophia replied, sitting down beside her. "I was at a smaller orphanage in Miami. But St. Anthony was the first social project your father embraced after bringing me to Chicago. He said it was his way of giving back for the blessing he had received." Maria, who was adjusting a flower arrangement nearby, discreetly wiped away a tear. "William Thompson has always been like this, a man with a big heart. Ever since I met his family, when you all still lived in that simple little house, he was already helping others even though he had little." The sound of footsteps interrupted the conversation. Nathan entered the room accompanied by Dr. Anderson. The serious expressions on both men's faces made the women's hearts tighten. "How is he?" Emily asked, standing up immediately. "Stable," the doctor replied, choosing his words carefully. "But I'm concerned about the frequency of the episodes. 3 in 1 week is more than usual." "What about the party?" Sophia questioned, fearing the answer. "Do we need to cancel it?" Dr. Anderson sighed, adjusting his glasses. "That would be the most prudent thing to do. Any strong emotion could trigger an episode. A party of this scale with so many people. We can't cancel it." William's voice sounded from the entrance of the room, surprising everyone. He was in his wheelchair, which he had started using in recent days to conserve energy. "These people need this night as much as I do." "Dad," Nathan approached, concerned, "you should be resting." "I've rested enough for today," William replied with a stubborn smile. "Besides, I needed to see how the preparations were coming along." "Maria, the flowers are magnificent." The housekeeper smiled, moved. "Thank you, Mr. William. They are the roses from Sophia's garden." William turned his gaze to the young woman, who immediately approached his chair. "You've been taking good care of Sarah's garden," he remarked affectionately. "She would be proud." "Uncle William," Sophia began hesitantly, "are you sure about the party? We could do something smaller, more intimate." "No, my dear," he said firmly. "Christmas is a time to celebrate life, to give thanks and share. All those children, the families we've helped, they deserve a night of joy." Dr. Anderson cleared his throat, drawing attention. "If you insist on having the party, we need to set some rules. First, you must not overexert yourself. Second, we need to have a medical team on standby discreetly. And third, at the first sign of any trouble, you will go straight to your room." "I accept your conditions, Doctor," William agreed, his eyes shining with determination. "But I have one request as well. I want it to be a real party, with music, dancing, and joy. No worried whispers or pitying looks." Emily approached her father, kneeling beside his chair. "I promise it will be the most beautiful party this house has ever seen. Mom would have loved it." "Yes, she would have loved it," William agreed, his voice slightly trembling. "Sarah always said that the best memories are the ones we create together." At that moment, one of the staff decorating the top of the staircase dropped a garland, causing a loud crash. The startle made William twitch slightly, and immediately everyone turned to him with concern. "I'm fine," he quickly assured, though his pallor suggested otherwise. "I just need a moment." Sophia was already checking the heart monitor on his wrist, while Nathan and Dr. Anderson positioned themselves by his side. Emily held her father's hand firmly, trying to convey calmness. "Perhaps it would be best for you to return to your room now," Maria suggested gently. I promise to oversee everything downstairs. William nodded, acknowledging that he needed to rest. As Nathan pushed his wheelchair toward the room, he cast one last glance at the transforming hall. The Christmas lights were already beginning to glow on the main tree, and the scent of Sophia's roses filled the air. "It's going to be a memorable night," he murmured, more to himself than to the others. What no one could have imagined was just how true that statement would prove to be, though not exactly in the way they expected. Christmas Eve arrived with a gentle snowfall over Chicago, a phenomenon so rare that it seemed like a special gift from the universe for the occasion. The Thompson mansion gleamed, illuminated by thousands of golden lights that reflected off the white flakes dancing in the air. In the master bedroom, Sophia was helping William get ready for the party. He had insisted on wearing his favorite tuxedo, the same one he had worn at Nathan's wedding a few years prior. "You look very elegant," she commented, carefully adjusting his bow tie. "But remember what Dr. Anderson said. You need to rest every hour." William smiled, observing their reflection in the mirror. Him in his impeccable tuxedo, her in a navy blue dress that accentuated her delicate beauty. "You look beautiful too, my daughter," he said, using that word to refer to her for the first time. Sophia Johnson felt the tears forming in her eyes, but held them back. "Thank you, Dad," she replied softly, savoring the word she had always longed to use. Downstairs, the hall was already filled with guests. Children from the orphanage ran among the adults, their laughter blending with the soft music that filled the room. Emily, in an elegant red dress, greeted the guests with Nathan and his wife Laura by her side. "It's incredible to see so many people whose lives were touched by Dad," Emily commented, observing the diversity of faces at the party. There were important businessmen as well as humble families who had benefited from William's social projects. Maria Gonzalez moved among the guests with her characteristic efficiency, ensuring everything ran smoothly. She had prepared special dishes, including some old recipes that Sarah, William's late wife, used to make during Christmas parties. When William finally descended the stairs in his wheelchair, accompanied by Sophia, the entire room stopped to applaud him. His smile lit up the room as much as the Christmas lights. "My dear friends," he began his speech, his voice still strong despite his physical frailty. "Tonight is special not only because it's Christmas, but because it represents everything most valuable in life: love, family, and the ability to make a difference in each other's lives." William's words deeply touched everyone present. Many wept, quietly, remembering how he had changed their lives. "When I began my journey in business," he continued, "I had only one dream: to provide a better life for my family. But God, in His infinite wisdom, showed me that family goes far beyond blood." Tice. His eyes scanned the room, resting on each familiar face. Nathan, who had learned to open his heart. Emily, who had rediscovered the meaning of sibling love. Sophia, the greatest example of how destiny works in mysterious ways. Each of you here, tonight is part of my family. Every smile, every story of overcoming, every dream realized, all of this is part of the true meaning of Christmas. As he spoke, William felt a slight dizziness but remained steady. Sophia, always attentive, noticed his growing pallor and made a discreet signal to Dr. Anderson, who was strategically positioned nearby. "And today," William continued, his voice slightly weaker, "I want to announce that the treatment center for children with rare diseases will become a reality. The construction will begin in January, and in less than a year, we will be able to offer hope to thousands of families." The applause was deafening. Nathan approached his father with an envelope in his hands. It was the final authorization to begin the construction, which he had managed to expedite as a Christmas gift. "Son," William smiled, holding the envelope with trembling hands, "you always knew how to surprise me." At that moment, one of the children from the orphanage, a girl of about 7 years old, timidly approached William with a handmade card. "You saved my little sister," she said in a sweet voice. "She was born very sick, but now she can play with me." William took the card, but his hands trembled more and more. Sophia immediately noticed that something was wrong. The heart monitor on his wrist began to emit subtle warning signals. "I think we need a break," she announced calmly, trying not to alarm the guests. "I'll accompany Uncle William for a short rest." Dr. Anderson was already by their side, and Nathan quickly positioned himself to help his father. As they moved away from the hall, William continued to smile and wave at the guests, determined not to show his fragility. In the hallway leading to the rooms, away from the party's gaze, he finally let the mask of strength fall. "I'm sorry," he whispered. "I wanted so much for this night to be perfect." "And it is perfect," Emily assured, joining them in the hallway. "You just need to rest a little." But something in William's expression suggested that this was not just another passing episode. As they took him to his room, the snowflakes continued to fall outside, covering Chicago with a white blanket that seemed to promise that miracles were still possible, especially on Christmas nights. The dawn of December 26th found the Thompson mansion in heavy silence. The snow from the previous night had ceased, leaving a white blanket that covered the rose garden. In the master bedroom, William remained semi-conscious, surrounded by medical equipment monitoring his vital signs. Sophia had not left his side since he had the most severe episode during the Christmas party. Now sitting in an armchair near the bed, she watched the heart monitor with attentive eyes, while holding one of the medical books she was studying for her college entrance exams. "You need to rest a little," Emily said softly, entering the room with a cup of tea. "You haven't slept at all since yesterday." "I can't," Sophia replied, accepting the cup with gratitude. "Every time I close my eyes, I'm afraid of—" "I know," Emily interrupted, sitting down beside her. "But Dad wouldn't want to see you wearing yourself out like this. Besides, Nathan is looking into some clinics that specialize in catalepsy. There might be treatments we haven't tried yet." Dr. Anderson, who had been monitoring William constantly since the previous night, entered the room at that moment. His expression was more serious than usual. "The girls are right," he said after checking William's vitals. "Sophia, you need to rest, and there's something we need to discuss as a family. Nathan is already waiting in the library." Sophia hesitated, looking at William. "But what if he needs something?" "Maria will stay with him," Emily assured, signaling to the housekeeper who was in the hallway. "She took care of Dad throughout our childhood. She knows exactly what to do." In the library, Nathan was pacing back and forth, holding some papers. When the women entered with the doctor, he stopped, his face showing concern. "Your father's condition is worsening more rapidly than we anticipated," Dr. Anderson began without mincing words. "The episodes of catalepsy are becoming longer and more frequent, and there's a risk that at some point we might confuse a prolonged episode with—" "Don't finish that sentence," Sophia Johnson interrupted, her voice trembling. "There must be something we can do." Nathan Thompson approached, placing the papers on the table. "I found a clinic in Switzerland that has an experimental treatment for cases like Dad's, but he's not in a condition to make an international trip," Dr. Anderson completed. "The risk would be too high." Emily Thompson, who had remained silent, suddenly stood up. "What if we bring the doctors here? Money isn't an issue. We can pay whatever is necessary." "I've already thought of that," Nathan replied. "I contacted the clinic this morning. They're willing to send a team, but they need a few weeks to organize." "Everything? Weeks?" Sophia questioned, distressed. "I fear we don't have that much time." A sharp sound from the hallway interrupted the conversation. It was the alarm from William Thompson's heart monitor. Maria Gonzalez appeared at the library door, her face pale. "Mr. William, he's having another episode." Everyone rushed to the main bedroom. William was completely still in bed, his face serene as if he were merely asleep, but the monitor showed alarmingly low vital signs. Dr. Anderson immediately began the emergency procedures that had become frequent in recent days. Sophia Johnson automatically took her position beside the doctor, assisting with a competence that surprised everyone. "The heartbeat is very weak," she reported, her professional voice contrasting with the fear in her eyes. "The breathing is almost imperceptible." Nathan held his sister's hand as they watched Dr. Anderson work. Maria Gonzalez, in a corner of the room, prayed softly in Spanish. Time seemed to have stopped inside that room as everyone waited for some sign of improvement. "Come on, Dad," Emily whispered, tears streaming down her face. "You still have so much to do. The treatment center." All those children waiting. Sophia continued monitoring the vital signs, her mind divided between the medical knowledge she was acquiring and the immense love she felt for the man who had saved her life. It was then that she noticed something different in the heartbeat pattern. "Dr. Anderson," she called, her voice trembling slightly. "Look at this. The pattern. It's different from the other episodes." The doctor adjusted his glasses, analyzing the monitor carefully. For a moment, his face showed concern, but soon after a shadow of hope appeared in his eyes. "You're right," he confirmed. "This pattern, it could be a sign that this episode is different from the previous ones. We need to continue monitoring closely." The snow began to fall again outside, once more covering the rose garden with its white mantle. Inside the room, the Thompson family remained united, each in their own way, fighting for the life of the man who had taught them all the true meaning of unconditional love. The 3 days following the Christmas crisis were the longest in the history of the Thompson family. William remained in a deep state of catalepsy, his vital signs so faint that only the most sensitive equipment could detect them. The main bedroom had been transformed into a small intensive care unit, with Dr. Anderson practically living in the mansion. On the morning of December 29th, Sophia Johnson was making her usual notes on the vital signs when she noticed something different. The patterns she had identified earlier were changing once again. "Dr. Anderson," she called, her voice urgent but controlled. "The heartbeats, they're even weaker than before." The doctor quickly approached, adjusting his glasses to examine the monitor. His face, usually calm and professional, showed a concern he couldn't hide. "Call the others," he instructed, "immediately." Nathan and Emily, who were resting in the next room, arrived within seconds. Maria Gonzalez, who was in the kitchen preparing tea, joined them shortly after. "What's happening?" Emily asked, noticing the tension in the room. Dr. Anderson took a deep breath before responding. "William's vital signs are reaching critical levels. This may be the most severe episode we've faced yet." Nathan ran his hands over his face, trying to maintain his composure. "And what can we do?" "At this moment, all we can do is wait and monitor," the doctor replied. "Catalepsy is an unpredictable condition. Each episode is unique." Sophia Johnson didn't take her eyes off the monitor, as if her concentration could keep William Thompson connected to life. Her hands trembled slightly as she took notes, the medical knowledge she had been acquiring in her college entrance exam studies, making the gravity of the situation even clearer to her. "The heartbeat is so weak," she murmured, more to herself than to the others. "Almost imperceptible." Maria Gonzalez approached the bed, holding William's cold hand. "Mr. Thompson, you need to fight. You still have so much work ahead, so many lives to change." Emily Thompson joined the housekeeper, her tears falling silently. "Remember what Mom always said, Dad? That as long as there is love, there is hope?" Nathan, watching the scene, had a sudden idea. "The treatment center," he said, stepping closer to the bed. "Dad, I have more good news. The city approved all the necessary permits. We can start construction as soon as you get better." For a moment, everyone watched the monitor in silence, waiting for some reaction. The machines continued to emit their weak, steady signals, the heart monitor line barely moving. "Doctor," Sophia called suddenly, her voice trembling. "The heartbeat, it's—" Before she could finish the sentence, the machines began to sound alarms. William's heartbeat, already extremely weak, seemed to be fading completely. "No, no, no," Sophia Johnson repeated, her hands moving quickly over the equipment. "Dad, please, not now." Dr. Anderson immediately began the emergency procedures, but his face showed that the situation was extremely serious. Nathan Thompson held Emily Thompson, who was openly sobbing, while Maria Gonzalez continued her prayers in Spanish. "The vital signs are practically absent," the doctor announced in a heavy voice. "We need to be prepared for—" "No," Sophia interrupted firmly. "There's something different. Look at the brainwave pattern. It's like he's trying to come back." Indeed, there was a subtle, almost imperceptible pattern in the electroencephalogram readings. Dr. Anderson adjusted his glasses, carefully analyzing the data. "You might be right," he said after a moment. "But even so, the situation is extremely critical. if there isn't a significant change in the next few hours. The sound of the phone interrupted his words. Nathan answered quickly, his expression changing as he listened. "It's the clinic in Switzerland," he informed, covering the phone. "The medical team. They can arrive tomorrow." A mix of hope and despair filled the room. Tomorrow might be too late, but it was also their only chance. "He'll make it," Sophia Johnson said with a conviction that surprised everyone. "He has to make it. He never gave up on me, and I won't give up on him." The sun was beginning to set outside, painting the sky in orange hues that reflected off the snow still covering the garden. Sophia's roses, resilient to the cold, stood firm, like a symbol of the strength that family would need to face the decisive hours ahead. The early hours of December 30th brought with them a decision no one was prepared to make. William Thompson's vital signs had grown so weak that Dr. Anderson, with a heavy heart, had to inform the family that there was nothing more they could do but wait. We need to prepare," he said softly, removing his fogged glasses. "And make the necessary arrangements." The family gathered in the office, leaving Maria Gonzalez with William in the room. The atmosphere was heavy with a mix of pain and disbelief. Nathan Thompson, always so composed, held an envelope with the treatment center documents, his hands trembling slightly. "I can't believe we've reached this point," Emily Thompson whispered, looking out the window at the snow-covered rose garden. "It feels like a nightmare." Sophia remained strangely calm, her eyes fixed on a distant point. Years of experience with her own health condition had taught her that hope sometimes comes in the most unlikely moments. "I'll take care of what's needed," Nathan said hoarsely, standing up. "Dr. Anderson said we need to act quickly before—" "No," Sophia interrupted suddenly, standing as well. "Something's wrong, I can feel it. We can't give up yet." "Sophia," Emily began gently, "I know it's hard to accept, but—" "It's not that," she insisted, her voice gaining strength. "Remember what he did for me. Everyone said I didn't have a chance, that it was better to give up. But he saw something no one else saw. He believed when no one else did." Nathan and Emily exchanged worried glances, fearing that the pain was affecting Sophia Johnson's judgment. But before they could respond, Maria Gonzalez burst into the office. "Come quickly," she exclaimed in Spanish, her face pale. "Mr. William, something is happening." Everyone rushed to the main room, where Dr. Anderson was already leaning over, William checking the monitors with renewed focus. "The patterns are changing," he informed them, his voice a mix of surprise and caution. "There's a subtle increase in brain activity." Sophia immediately took her place beside the doctor, her trained eyes analyzing every small change on the monitors. "The pattern, it's different from all the other episodes," she observed. The minutes that followed were filled with intense anticipation. Every small variation on the monitors brought a wave of hope, followed by the fear of another disappointment. Nathan held Emily's hand, while Maria continued her incessant prayers, and then it happened. A subtle movement of William's fingers, so slight it might have gone unnoticed if Sophia hadn't been watching so closely. "Dad," she called softly, holding his hand. "We're here, all of us." The monitors began to register a more significant increase in vital signs. Dr. Anderson moved, quickly performing a series of checks. "Incredible," he murmured. "The signs are strengthening. It's as if—" Before he could finish the sentence, William's eyes slowly opened. His gaze, initially unfocused, gradually gained clarity as it met the anxious faces surrounding him. "My roses," were his first words, almost a whisper. "Did they survive the snow?" Sophia couldn't hold back a sob of relief and joy. "Yes, Dad. They're strong, just like you taught me to be." Emily and Nathan approached the bed, their faces marked by tears of happiness. Maria, in her corner, thanked the heavens in a mix of Portuguese and Spanish. "The doctors from Switzerland," Nathan began, his voice choked. "They're on their way." "It won't be necessary," Dr. Anderson intervened after performing a few more checks. "What happened here is something medical science will have a hard time explaining. The vital signs are normalizing in a way I've never seen in cases of catalepsy." William smiled weakly, his eyes fixing on each person present. "I couldn't leave," he said softly. "Not yet. We have a treatment center to build, and a doctor to train." Sophia squeezed his hand tighter, understanding the reference to her future career in medicine. Nathan approached with the treatment center documents, showing his father that everything was on track. "It will be the largest and most modern treatment center for rare diseases in North America," he assured. "Exactly as you dreamed." "No," William corrected, his voice gaining strength. "It will be better, because now it's not just my dream. It's the dream of this entire family." Emily leaned in to kiss her father's forehead. "Mom would be so proud," she whispered, "of all of us." The morning sun was beginning to rise, its first rays streaming through the bedroom window. Outside, the snow was starting to melt, revealing Sophia's roses, which had bravely endured the winter. It was a new day, a new beginning for the Thompson family. Maria opened the curtains completely, letting the light flood the room. The sunlight made the snow look like diamonds scattered across the garden, creating a spectacle of light that seemed to celebrate the miracle they had witnessed. "Life is made of second chances," William said, gazing at the garden, "and of people who don't give up on each other." At that moment, surrounded by the love of his family, both the one by blood and the one his heart had chosen, William Thompson understood that his greatest legacy would not be the financial empire he had built, nor even the treatment center that would save so many lives. His true legacy was the love he had planted and nurtured, like the roses in his garden, enduring all storms and blooming even through life's harshest winters.